Alright, so I am about to endeavor in taking out the bushings, the upper and lower bushings on the rear hubs. Okay, I got the parts. I got them from British Parts of Utah, BP Utah. They had them very affordable, and I got them in no time. And oddly enough, I bought them from their eBay store, so that worked out rather well. This is, you know, you watch these videos, and some guy snaps out in 20 minutes, full-length video, easy day, right? Well, I live in northern Michigan, so I'm going to have quite a bit of rust to contend with, I dare say. So we'll get that situated and deal with it as we go along. I predict this is going to be a pain in the butt, because it usually is. You know, things pressed in to cast iron in a snowy, salted roads environment never really goes well, typically. So let's hope for the best. We'll see how it goes. The sun is shining. Gotta love that. It's been sunny for a day or two now, and they said it's supposed to be sunny like all week. So let's hope that continues. You can see the Rover behind me there, the patient, as it were, about to get that taken care of. My symptoms were I'd get occasional thunking out of the rear end when I'm off-road, and also I had a creaky suspension issue. Well, the shocks only took care of a portion of that because it came back, and now it had a thunk. So there you go. I was able to identify it as the hub itself by jacking up the trailing arm, and you could literally manipulate some of that joint. So it kind of gave indications of a blown wheel bearing, but when you try and manually, you know, pound it around and move it around while it's elevated, you know, while it's off the ground, you could see that it was the entire hub, not just the wheel, separate from the hub. So that's how I knew the bushings had run their course, and I have to replace them. So got the bushings, got the tools, I got a general idea how this is going to go. So I'll be starting that here. Well, I'll get it in the garage and get it on stands and start doing all the prep stuff, and then we'll see where the day takes me, because I have a feeling it's going to get ugly. So we shall see. So with the wheel off, we can take a look at what we're getting to. Now, we're going to take apart this joint and the one directly beneath it down there. Okay, so if you look at this joint, I'm trying to get my light in an appropriate spot here. That bushing looks pretty shot, and they creak pretty good too, so I got to get those apart. But you have to check these things, because it's control arm, whether it's front or rear. This one is oblong, and if you can tell, it's got degree marks on it. So this is an alignment setting. And my guess is to set the caster, or the camber, excuse me, on this rear end, so the tires are vertical instead of tipping inward or outward. So we're going to mark that, and then get that nut out, that bolt out rather, the nuts on this side, and then take apart the top, and then we'll do the bottom. So let's get it going. So here's where I'm at. I got the old bushing out, which I'll get to in a minute, and I got this in there just holding the hub up so it doesn't fall down. The bottom one I'm getting to, let me see if we can get to that. The bottom one I'm getting to, but it's stuck in there also. So I've ordered the bolts before I proceed any further, because this one I broke. Okay, so I live in northern Michigan and things rust. So this is what the old one looked like. It does currently look like. And here's what it used to look like in 2007. All right, this is a brand new one. I got these from British Parts of Utah. They got them to me super fast, so awesome. Good price, good part. This is a factory original part, so it's not, you know, made in China somewhere where it'll fail on me in no time. This is the original one, so I should get another 178,000 miles out of this one, theoretically. So this one, it was wedged in there like so. I had to cut the end of the bolt off because it was stuck in there to the point where it wouldn't come out. Okay, now I had to do that because this end broke off. Wait, there you go, this way. This end twisted clean off and broke. Let me get some more light in here so you see what I'm talking about. See what I mean? It twisted right off, so I had to cut it and cut it and cut it and cut it. And then that, I had to cut the end off. And then, it gets better. I had to cut, you know, get this plastic off and cut this even because there's a little bit of a lip here where this plastic attached, right? Or this rubber, excuse me. There's that little bit of a lip here. Well, I had to cut all that stuff off and then create something, a gear puller, because I don't have a torch, with a socket on the end of it that fit over the end of that, right? And then just push the whole thing out as this grabbed onto that ear on the top. You guys following me? I'm doing this one-handed. Okay, this had to take a little self-discovery to figure all this out. Okay, so this is the contraption I created to put tension against this bushing, like so, in there. It's all beat up and crooked now, but that's the way it went, because I broke this off and cut this one off. And then I had to put this under load and then smack it with an impact, a big freaking hammer, and then that got it to move. And then I just took my impact 1/2-inch drive wrench and just drove this down, and it pushed it right out. But it was rusted in there. You can see the rust. It was stuck in there hard, and it did not want to move. In fact, you can see the rust buildup right here, and that's why I had to cut it smooth on this side with a Sawzall. Not a pretty sight, not a pretty thing at all. But living in northern Michigan, sometimes we got to improvise. And then to get it the rest of the way out, or to get the new one in rather, I had to create this handy dandy little tool, which looks like this. This, what is it, 36 millimeter goes over the end of it. Put some lube on this so you don't tear the boot up. The socket goes over the end of that. Just fits inside there. You feed the whole thing through the ear, put a nut on the end, and then just drive it right in. Because, like, here's the ear, and that socket will go over the end and scoot it right on. And you end up with it pressed into place, like so. Alright, pretty well centered, perfectly centered. And that's about that. So, that's where it sits now. So, I'm making this video to give you an update of where I'm at, but also to let you know that I can't finish this till Wednesday. That's 4 days from now, because I twisted the end right off this sucker, broke it clean, because it rusted right inside of here. So I'm going to go ahead and push out the other one on the bottom, put another, you know, just a cheesy bolt in there to hold it in place like I did here. Do the same thing on the bottom. Hopefully that bolt will stay. Regardless, I ordered a new one because I'm anticipating, you know, me being a bonehead and breaking it. And then I'm going to go ahead and take apart the other side and get it prepped. So when the bolts come in on Wednesday, I'm just going to slap it all together, plumb bob this sucker straight so I can, you know, get the camber right, get it over the alignment shop, and there you go. I should be good to go. So there's going to have to be a delayed update on this one. I hope you guys don't mind. And then I'll get to you in a couple of days, okay? So bear with me. I'm working on it. It'll be like a brief pause for you guys, but, you know, my car's going to have to sit here on jacks for a few more days, unfortunately. Finally got the bolt out. Took some persuasion with a punch. So I'm going to have to replace this one. This is just a regular bolt, so I don't need to have the cam head or anything like that for adjustment and camber. And then I got to pop off that clip. Let me get that. Let me show you. It's right here. I'll split that clip. Lift that up. Somehow I'll get in there. There's a lot of rust, but I'll flip that up, and then this thing should just boop, pop out that way. So we'll see. Now that the bottom's in, you can see it there. Let me get some light on that puppy. Brand new hotness going in there. And the top one, busted that bolt, so I'm waiting on that one to come in the mail, because that has that particular adjustment head on it over there. And this one I was able to get from a local hardware store, so I got a grade 8 zinc one. So I don't have rust issues no mo. So there's the new upper one. So this was a horrible pain in the butt, if I'm honest, okay? So that's all caught up. Now, let's go to where we were. So it's a horrible mess in the garage, so please bear with me. Okay, this is the upper, the old one, of course, and it is B2 hell. I had to heat it to cut the end off. Ultimately what I had to do, like this, if to the right is the rear of the vehicle, I had to cut this flange off because it built up so much rust, and then start cutting off this stud here right through the center of it. But I guess just the vibration of doing that broke it free, because you could see all the rust on this thing, especially on this edge. It's like a rust lip, and this is in between those ears for the A-arm, right? So I've been trying to sawzall in between all that to get it out. So consequently, here's the adjuster end. So I got my little timing mark on it, my little adjustment mark on it. And then that's the back one I had to cut off. That's what broke off, actually, when I was trying to loosen it. Snapped clean off. So that's the upper. The lower, oddly enough, this is what the insides look like. If you're ever curious about the lower bushing there, this is the front and this is the back of the vehicle. So this big lip goes toward the front, and then of course the open area with that big clip. Here, I'll show you in the new one. This notch, a clip goes in there. So you got to press it in that ear beyond that point, okay? So this, because it was rusted, look at the rust on this thing. It was stuck, it was basically welded in there, and I had to cut relief cuts and then start beating it with a chisel to get this sucker out. Now I did nick the ear on that thing, but it's like a 1/16 of an inch, if that. So not gonna worry too much about that. And trying to press it, pushing it from here, it just popped all the guts right out. That's how stuck that sucker was in there. It wasn't moving at all. So now the new hotness. This is the upper, of course, and this is just reflective of what's in there already. And then this is the lower. So now I gotta do the right side, or passenger side, and get that squared up. Okay, so I got the other two done. Now these two, I got 2 more days before the upper adjustment bolts arrive with the camber, the little offset thing here, so you can adjust the camber. I'm waiting on those 2 more days so I can at least get these in place and just jam a generic bolt through them just to hold the A-arm in place. So some of the tools. Those of you that are astute Ford owners will know that this is the bearing tool for a Dana 60 front axle. So what I did was trim up the ears on the inside here just a skosh, because that, boom, perfect fit, and it pushes right on there. So this became my press bit, actually. So, you know, you gotta be clever in this day and age. And I lost a nut for this somewhere, so I was using this as more of a clamping, extracting device. Homemade, you know, it's just a piece of all thread with some nuts on it. Gear puller, BFH, super handy in a job like this. And then a local auto shop store provided me with, I rented it from O'Reilly's, and it's just a regular ball joint kit. It's a smaller one, doesn't have all the bits, so some things to consider. The bits will work fine for this one, no big deal there. You might need something around this one. I just used an old socket or something to grab the collar up here, you know, push on that shoulder. And then this one, 2 1/8 is what your diameter is here to push on this collar, okay? That's why I use this, because it is 2 1/8 and it fits on there real nice. All right, so also, when you get the old one out, remember to run some sandpaper through those holes so they're cleaned up. And then I put some anti-seize on the new one and jammed it in there. And that seemed to work pretty good so far, okay? It was a bear getting it apart. Putting it together took 15 minutes, man. But I live in northern Michigan, so I got a lot of rust to contend with. So such is life. So now, get on that one, start tearing that one apart, and leave this one for the time being until my parts come in 2 more days. So I'll catch you up then. All right, so bushings are in. There's the upper with the new camber bolt. This little offset collar on it allows you to adjust in this galley. And don't forget the back side, there's also a washer that is the same kind of setup that fits only one way. You'll see when you do it. It's very self-explanatory. So I got it in there. Got the bottom bushing in, and I put a zinc covered stud on that because I didn't have the bolt. And then I ended up having to cut this one off anyway, so I ordered the bolts, and Atlantic British saves the day. They're the only ones that had these bolts, okay? The nuts I was able to reuse. That's just a nut, you know, no big deal. but the bolt itself was something that I had to get on there to finish. So I had to wait 3 days for it to come in the mail. So my truck's been sitting on jack stands here for quite a long time, okay? So, torqued down the caliper mount, torqued down the bottom, torqued down the top, replaced the brake line connections and snapped all these lines back into place. I did break this goofy little connection piece. You see it right there. It's a plastic. I tried to drill it out, but I just gave up on it. So I'm using a zip tie to hold the ABS sensor against this hub assembly so it doesn't, you know, get wrapped up in mud and ripped off or something like that. So that should do it. Not pretty, but all the plastic on these trucks is starting to fail and fall apart. Excuse me, throat tickle. So I set the camber myself, and how I did this was this crazy contraption. It's actually very, very close to the hub. It's not actually touching it. And then I use my welding graph, my dial here rather, my welding dial to kind of give me a second opinion, if you will. Also, I used the head of the old one to give me a reference, but apparently those bushings were so off. This thing is way, way out. So I'm not even going to bother with this. This, of course, I had to cut off just to get the stinking bolt out of the middle to separate the hub from the upper A-arm. So, passenger side done. I'm going to repeat the process with adding the bolt, setting the camber, getting the wheel on, and then this is done finally. I've been screwing with this thing for a week, mostly waiting on parts and such. But, you know, I was able to track it down and get it here, and here we are, wrapping up this job. Alright, there is the finished product. Wheel on, torque down, lug nuts torqued. Just took it for a test drive. Everything checks out, drives great, drives normal. No creaking and thunking and things like that. Here's an idea of my little guesstimation on the camber. Sorry about the wind, it came out of nowhere. Earlier it wasn't windy at all. There's more camber. Here, let me step out of the wind and wrap this up. Okay, so the camber is, it looks good, and that's eyeballed. I have to get it aligned, of course, and I will. It's just not today. They're all booked up till like next Wednesday or something. So I got it close, and I'll pay attention to tire wear and things of that nature in the meantime. But this job is now officially complete. Upper and lower bushings for the rear hubs is done. Everything retorqued, tightened up, and everything as per the videos, step by step. The tools already kind of covered that. The sides are pretty equal. Mine had a lot of rust, of course, so it took a lot longer. And thanks again to Atlantic British for having the parts I needed, and they got them here pretty quick once we're able to identify the part number and everything and get it, you know, get it truly identified and sent out here. So thanks to Dave at Atlantic British, really appreciate it. And well, speaking of Atlantic British, I bought some control arms, lower control arms for the LR4, so I'll be doing those too. I don't know, I might be giving that one out. This job was a real pain in the butt. But hey, the originals lasted 178,000 miles, so let's hope we can get that out of these, all right? So please feel free, as always, to like, share, comment, subscribe, give me some feedback, tell me, you know, something that you learned from doing a situation like this or what have you. Not a hard job. Again, most of these aren't. It's getting the joints pushed out of the housing, out of the hub rather, and into some sort of receiving, like a giant socket or something like that. You'll have to figure that one out on your own, because yours may come right out with just a ball joint kit, where mine took a lot of work. So best of luck to you if you're doing this in the future, and until next time, we'll see you around.